Hi everyone and welcome back to Online Tutorials Life Coaching, the Life Coaching series. Today's Unit 6, which is Coaching Using Positive Psychology. The previous video, we were on Unit 5, which was about time management and productivity. So let's go straight into this, psychological triggers. Now, a trigger is something that sets off a psychological memory, and it's something very personal that you can cause you to have a flashback. And the trigger could be activated through senses. So, for instance, seeing someone that looks like a relative who's upset us, or someone who looks like your ex. Often the triggers the trigger's activated through an attitude. Say, as a child, you may have felt unheard in adulthood, and then you meet someone who's dismissed what you've just said. This may result in an unnatural reaction based on your unconscious trigger. So, first, as ourselves as coaches, and then for our clients, it's important that we are aware of our triggers, what makes us happy and what makes us sad. And what you need to do is overcome this trigger. This can be done first by stepping back during heightened emotionality, which is very difficult, but something we must learn to practice. Recognize that the act of emotionality is quite reactive response and not a rational one. And step back and think, what caused us distress? What caused us anger or the other negative emotion? It could be something as simple as realizing that you're overworked and haven't eaten in a few days properly. And so you might feel more vulnerable at this time. Therefore, it's better to respond at a different moment in time. What you need to do is take time to understand your own triggers and help the clients to do the same. If the client's struggling, then you should ask them to seek professional help from a mental expert, which could be useful. So that's psychological triggers. Now we'll go on to building confidence and self-esteem for yourself and the client mainly. So remember, your client is he or she is a work in progress, and it's something they must build like a muscle. We said before, motivation. And there's a number of ways to increase confidence and self-esteem. One of which is, we mentioned in earlier units, was positive affirmations. Which you can write down in a list and carry with yourself. You also want to make daily changes for this self-confidence and self-esteem improvement. What are some big and small things you'll love to do? You should be asking your clients on a daily basis. Like, on a daily day, what are small big things they want to do on that day? Or something they'll like to wear. For example, be bold and try a new colour, and then compliment yourself. It's also important, whilst they do this, they keep a gratitude journey. They can write down 5 things that they're grateful for. And because journaling has proven scientific benefits for the brain, and not only does it help to rewire, but we feel naturally more positive and more confident. We help our thoughts out of our head. So that makes for building confidence, self-esteem. So you want to make daily changes like that. Also for strength building. Building on our strengths is firstly directly about self-awareness. Aware of what you're good at. So you should firstly write down all your list of talents, achievements and things that you enjoy. Keep a visible record of them. But the main thing is also to have a visible reminder of them. Success is mostly about being aware of your achievements and to build upon that existing skill set. So now the third thing you can do to improve your self-confidence, self-esteem, is to unlock your inner child. I'll write this down here. So, for too long as an adult, you've been in a rut for a long time, and you're quite devoid of any creative expression. So we kind of forget what it feels like to have a passion for, or to be just us. Excuse me. So if you're still trying to understand your strengths, you might have forgotten who you truly are. And so what you need to do is probably take a step back into childhood memories. This is because children often have freedom that allows them to be creative and to express what they enjoy in life. There's a few tips to achieve this and to unlock the inner child. Well, start by, you might want to note these down. And start by asking your inner child, what do they love to do? Second, what were you passionate about as a child? Third, what fond memories do you have? What were you doing? Where were you during those moments? 5, what interested you and what inspired you at that time in your life? And then what are the barriers to experience these moments now? What can you actively do to overcome these barriers? So unlocking your inner child could help with building your self-esteem and confidence. There's also positive self-talk. Now, this is where you understand the power in language. We talked about this in previous units where you use positive affirmation to reframe your thinking. So you need to I suggest for this, you need to keep a list of all your positive qualities and refer to them on a daily basis. Begin to affirm what you would like to achieve on a regular basis. And it's important to remember that fear is a powerful weapon that keeps us in our comfort zone, but is often based on misguided assumptions. So using these positive qualities will push you and your confidence to overcome that fear, hopefully. And you must always try to avoid instances of fortune telling or catastrophic looking at a really bad situation when it hasn't even happened. So like seeing a problem when it doesn't even exist, or foreseeing a disaster when there's no evidence of that impending doom. Now, what I've just talked about is positive psychology. And it's been quite fundamental to many coaches and the coachees. The concepts of positive psychology embrace authentic living. We spoke about being authentic, which is when you're actually able to chase your own dreams and your own goals, not someone else's. And the key points in psychology focus on daily doses of gratitude. So we spoke at the gratitude journal, and cultivating a mindset of thankfulness. The other thing it does is also harness creativity. So we're talking about the inner child, unlocking the inner child. And creativity is cultivated through taking time out from the chaos and being in a positive environment. Once you utilize your creative potential, you'll begin to be a bit more focused, and creativity allows you to get into the flow, into the state of being what psychologists described as completely focused, devoid of knowledge of time and distractions. Once you're in that flow, there's a term called neuroplasticity. So I'll write that down here in big. And what that means is, for us, the brain has an ability to reorganize itself. It can change its neural pathways to develop a new ingrained way of thinking, in a sense that the brain is quite malleable. It's quite adjustable. And what helps is both physical exercise and ongoing learning, which can help the brain rewire itself. There's a few tips to support this brain fluidity. So one of the things is to be mindful of what you listen to, whether it's music or TV. You need to try avoiding negative press and focus on positive affirmations. Also visualize your goal and ideas, choose a positive lifestyle, and exercise your brain for ongoing learning. So that's how you train your brain to be a bit more fluid. And hopefully the creativity from the inner child will unlock that flow and then lead into this. We'll now talk about setting boundaries for personal growth. So, boundaries and values. It's important, I think, you set your own personal values in life. And what values do, it comes from a belief system from our belief system actually. How we see the world. And values are quite subjective. So they define us, they impact how we see the world, how we live our lives, and the choices we make. I think firstly, and value system, your own value system will affect you in a number of ways. I mean, first of all, it will help you form your own definition of success, or what success looks like to you. And also, secondly, it helps forge your own personal boundaries, what you stand for, what you tolerate. When you form your values based on other people's views of life, you potentially limit your own personal success. And by challenging the status quo, you can only do this really by imprinting your own values, challenging the values that already exist out there. And so in life, many fall into depression or a classic midlife crisis later on in life because they did not challenge the status quo. Essentially meaning that their life was a road marked out by someone else. I think it's important before we go into setting boundaries and values to write down the definition of them. So let's write down the definition of values first. And that is principles or rules we set that influence how we do life. They are internal code of conduct, in other words. So that's values. Now boundaries. These are rules and standards. So rules that we set which influence how others treat us. So these are the two definitions, and it's key to understand what they are. And with these two definitions in mind, being clear on your personal boundaries can be quite an enlightening experience for others too. So perhaps you, in case of a tardy friend, they didn't realise what effect or negative or slowing down effect they had on you, and they may possibly need to reevaluate their time management too. Now, through this is a lot of thinking about yourself and reflecting, and what is susceptible to is thinking errors. So, and there are 7 types of thinking errors. I'll go through each one of them. Okay, so the first error is, so we'll just write thinking errors in the middle first of all. And the first one is mind reading. So this involves wrongly assuming that others are thinking things about you. For example, would be Charlotte thinks that her work colleagues think that she's useless. That's a thinking error. Another one is catastrophizing or fortune telling. So falsely predicting how things will happen. It could, which will usually result in the worst case scenario. For example, the bag lady phenomenon, fearing being left with nothing, I guess. And this could actually lead to anxiety and stress. The third one is overgeneralizing. This could be either about a client or how a client thinks of another person. They use the language I always and they never. So, for example, I always fail test. The other mistake is emotional reasoning. Right, so relying too much on your feelings to make decisions. For example, feeling lonely so you can call up an ex. Another issue is excessive self-criticism. That's a thinking error. So focus on your bad qualities and flaws too much and being hypercritical of your mistakes. For example, oh, I'm so stupid, I got a D in maths. I'm not good at maths. I can never count these numbers up. Another thinking error is making demands. So making demands on self and to others. So this involves words such as must, I should, I ought to. So for example, I'm busy, but I should see my friend for coffee. She might need help or something. The other one is, I think the last one, which is only noticing or remembering negatives. So ignoring the positives and focus on negatives of a situation. And so the use of this like mental filtering means that positive situations are often forgotten, which is very bad for positive thinking. All right, so now we've mentioned before, to challenge this, you should write, actually, for every negative thought, for this last one, you should always write a positive one. Now, for this negative thought, we could use an exercise for your client. What this means is you write 3 columns. First column would be, so we'll remove this now. It's called the ABC analysis. And we split it into 3. And so the first column would be activating event. Second column would be beliefs. Third column, consequences. And so every time I have a negative thought and a negative belief, an event activates this, we get a belief, and there's a consequence of those actions. For example, let's take your closest best friend stole your money. Your belief is that it doesn't matter who your friends are, they can't be trusted. Therefore now you're not open to making new friends and don't let them into your life. Now there's a checklist of questions that you want your client to, first of all, write down the activating events and their beliefs and the consequences of what they think they are. And then go through a dispute checklist. I'll slowly mention what the dispute checklist, the questions you should be asking your client. So 1, what evidence, and I hope you can write this down, what evidence is there to support your belief? What evidence is there to cast doubt on it? So these are for each of the lines that the client writes or you write yourself if you're doing this exercise. What alternative possibilities are there? And what evidence is there to suggest that it might be true? Is my belief balanced, or is it too extreme or inflexible? Is my belief helpful? What problems arise from believing it? is my belief. If my belief is true, how much does it actually matter? What could I actually do to check if my belief is true? What would I say to a friend who described a similar situation and expressed a similar belief about it? What would a reasonable, supportive friend say to me about this? And these are questions you should go through your client for each belief. Because we want to remove the negative thoughts. I think on a general day there are thought stopping ideas that you need, or tactics that you need to put down for your client. So obviously going through this exercise you try to cancel out these negative thoughts or negative beliefs they have made taken. But you want thought stopping exercises, which is through affirmations. You want a phrase or so. So what you can do is you can ask the client to list down a few phrases that makes them feel positive about themselves, and take the two best two and ask them to remember it. So anytime a negative thought comes into their head, they should repeat those two phrases to themselves. Also, there's the elastic band method for thought stopping, where the client has an elastic band, a rubber band around their wrist. Every time they have a negative thought, they should pull that band and let it flick them on the wrist to remind them to stop that negative thought. Okay, so now I'll move on to the next topic, and what you need to establish to the client is their life today. There's a few questions, because in order to help your client understand the vision, you need to guide them to look back at their life and focus on significant and happy memories. And there are a few questions you need to ask your client. I won't write them down, but I'll just mention them on the video and hopefully you can note them down. So one, what have been some of the happiest moments in your life? What activities do you enjoy the most? What talents do you have? What talents do you want? How would you like to contribute to the world? So with all those thoughts, what you want to do then is write a mission statement. That's for the client itself, or if you're doing this exercise, then yourself, with all those thoughts and answers to those questions. So a mission statement is a written statement about a person or organisation's purpose, and which encompasses vision or goal. So you can ask the client, after they've answered those questions I mentioned earlier, to write down their mission statement. For example, an example of a mission statement will be, I will live each day with boldness, courage and kindness, or I will serve my community through the use of my talents and I will be dedicated wife and mother, or I will leave a positive legacy behind. Okay, I'm just going to look through my notes quickly, just see what's next best. Okay, so I think that's it for today's unit, and we'll continue unit 7 in the next video.